First off, I'd like to start by thanking Uncle Bill. He came to me at the table and told me and said he had a really witty and funny story about Grandma. And as I pulled out the pen, was ready to write down this story, and he said, "Oops, I forgot." Then he just came to me, and he's like, "I remember what the story was." And so he told me the story, and now I forgot. So I thought this was an age thing, but apparently it wasn't. I'd like to start by welcoming friends, family members, and really thank you for coming today. We're gathered together today not to mourn, but to celebrate the life of Jean Shimko. I'm speaking today on behalf of the grandchildren. As we got together this week, we realized that the grandchildren had some great stories about Grandma or Baba, depending on where you are in the line, in the pecking order. The Shimkos and Lisa and me, we refer to her as Grandma, because she didn't want to be called Baba because it sounded too old at the time. But the Picklets and Garrett refer to her as Baba, so you'll hear that used interchangeably. So those of you that may not know me, I'm Ryan. I am the eldest grandchild, and the first in the family, or the first grandchild in the family, once the favorite, only to be replaced by Darian. And I think every grandson was called Darian at some point. It always started off Darian, oh, Chris, oh, Ryan. I realized that this is probably one of the hardest things I've had to do, so I had asked the grandchildren when we got together to provide me some memories and thoughts about the things that they remember most about Grandma. And suffice it to say that there was nothing more important to Grandma than her family. Family always came first, and I really believe that family meant everything to her, and it always did. I often think back to my younger years, seeing Grandma interact with us, her brothers and her sisters, family friends like Walter and Luba, and it was always apparent that family was first and foremost priority for her. She was always the first to bring us together for a family dinner on a Friday night, and she always was the first to be cooking everything for everyone for Thanksgiving and any other holiday meal. And her home was the gathering place for our family. She loved to entertain. She was always happy to host anytime anyone would stop in. We were always welcome in her home, and for the cousins, the basement was always where we would gather. And as you can imagine, with 10 grandchildren and 5 great-grandchildren, there was always a lot of trouble that was caused. I'm sure the cousins will remember that there was this little yellow plastic hardball that we used to play hockey with. And I'm pretty sure a couple of the grandkids lost teeth with that little yellow plastic ball. And we also busted up quite a few lights. Well, actually I did. Adria told us that Grandma used to keep extra light bulbs in the basement for that reason, because we broke so many of them over the years. There also was an incident with the Shimko kids. When Grandma moved from the Garden Park house to the Templeton house, there was a hole in the wall that was covered up with a painting. And Grandma didn't discover that hole until she actually moved. One of the other things that made us laugh, we laughed when we were thinking about the sign that she used to keep in her basement that said, "Keep out, love you." And it was really to keep Garrett out of the closet from playing with Grandpa's old wheelchair. We can't talk about Grandma without talking about her cooking. And I know it's one of the things that she didn't want. She didn't want people to remember her as the woman or the Baba who made pierogies and walnut cheese, or who did all the baking for the family. But for me, it's really hard to remember, or not remember Grandma without thinking about all the cooking and baking that she did for us over the years. And I think that was obviously her way of bringing us all together. She loved to cook, she loved to bake, but she also loved to host. She would spend a month deciding what the menu should look like for a holiday dinner, and would often end up with multiple meat dishes and salads because she had to make sure that she would make each person's favorite dish. That's just the type of woman that she was. However, with that being said, Grandma was also very competitive when it came to cooking and baking. And I'm sure that there are many family members here who are here today who can attest to making something that family would comment about how much they liked it, and then Grandma would duplicate it, or it would show up at the next family gathering. That's actually the pistachio cake, and why that's here today, because Luba made it, and Uncle Kelly commented what a great cake it was. Lo and behold, next time we got together, Grandma made the pistachio cake. Quite a few years ago, I have a recipe for M&M cookies, and I had made M&M cookies for Thanksgiving. And the next time we went to Grandma's house, lo and behold, the M&M cookies showed up. When my dad won his chili cooking competition, Grandma also took her hand at making chili. But the funniest story that always will stand out for me and Lisa was at Thanksgiving a few years ago. So there was a friendly rivalry between my dad's deep fried turkey and Grandma's oven roasted turkey. I really meant to say oven roasted, not over roasted. But Grandma would stand in the buffet line to make sure that not only did we take her turkey, but so as to make sure that her turkey was the better turkey. So Lisa and I were up there, we're getting our turkey, and she asked us which one we liked better. And we said, oh, of course, yours is better, even though it probably wasn't. To which we heard her say, ha ha, I win. So because I'm a bit older, and I think this is one of the things I appreciate most about being one of the older grandchildren, I can remember going to larger family events on the Molesky side. Weddings and showers specifically stood out for me and Lisa, where the sisters would often make different types of torts. And there was always a great sense of competition amongst the sisters as to who had the best torts. And I can remember Auntie Anne at one shower saying to me, Ryan, did you enjoy it? And then she whispered to me, whose was better? When I got to see Grandma and her family get together, it was always a sight to behold. You could hear the sisters laughing from miles away. And my fondest memories are the times when I got to see Grandma be with her brothers and sisters. Whether at her home, a wedding, a family reunion, or at White Lake, they would always be singing, dancing, and laughing. They would always take the time to talk to us as grandchildren, to see how we were doing and to make sure that we were well fed. I'm sure for many of the older grandchildren like me, I always felt like each of Grandma's siblings treated us like we were their own grandchildren. One of the things that I always remember about Grandma was her sense of adventure and her ability even to try things when she was older. Grandma had a great sense of humor, and as I've heard, there was an incident out at White Lake where Grandma and Grandpa decided to play a prank on their neighbors. They got a hold of a mannequin, they put a wig on it, snuck into their friend's trailer, and stuck it in their bed. And apparently that mannequin is still making its rounds around the White Lake campground. A few years ago at Auntie Bonnie and Uncle Rod's house, the family were taking horse rides. And it was Grandma, with her tireless energy and sense of adventure, who got on that horse, donned a cowboy hat, and rode around on Willie. And I'm sure you've seen that picture's actually up here. There's 5 languages of love, or love languages. And that's words of affirmation, acts of service, receiving gifts, quality time, and physical touch. And when I think of Grandma, there are 2 that really stand out in my mind, the acts of service and the quality time.
You got this.
Grandma expressed her love through her sense of family and belonging, through her cooking and hosting family events, and spending quality time with everyone in her life. From the weekends at White Lake to Thanksgiving dinners over the years at Gull Lake and Moose Lake, the Christmas Eve and Boxing Day dinners that Grandma put on all by herself, hosting 30 people when she was well into her 80s and 90s, Grandma was at the heart of it all. She always made everyone feel like they were a part of her family. There are probably a million other stories I could share about Grandma. As the grandchildren were reminiscing, countless stories emerged, some that made us laugh and some that made us cry. I could stand up here for hours telling some of the stories that have lived on over the years about her life and her family and her adventures. And with that, please take some time to talk and reminisce about her life. For me, having 45 years to spend with her have helped me to reaffirm the person that I've become and how she helped shape who I am. I promise I'm at the end. When I became a psychiatric nurse, one of the things that they always taught us to do is to how to be self-reflective, to think about how other people perceive us and the way that we interact with the people that we work with. And now that I do the same work with students, it's made me think about who I am and what I do. And more recently, I've thought a lot about the values that I've adopted and hold on to because of my family and the things that I've learned from Grandma. In the last week of our course, I always try to send a powerful and positive message to the students, something that they can hold on to and reflect as they start their careers. And for this reason, I want to pass along this one last message. It's a quote that really resonates with me, and I'll always display it for the students on our last day of our course to get them to think about the impact that they can have on people's lives. And as I was writing this, I realized that it not only describes what I will remember most about Grandma, but the impact that she had on me. It was Maya Angelou who said, "People will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel." And I'll always remember that because Grandma always made us feel loved.